Hi guys, we are going off documents for this episode and the next episode. These are opinion pieces based on some of the things that I've found that I feel like match what happened, even offering an explanation. This episode is a comparison of her cooking style and what she has to say about it, and how it's a metaphor, I think, for the same approach that she takes in her creative Hollywood career. There's some hidden little surprises in the thumbnail again. I do it from time to time just to see if you guys catch it. Let me know in comments if you did. The next episode, keep an eye out for it, is going to be about what was really behind what Blake thought was a smear campaign. But for now, I present Box Cake Blake, the recipe for an extorted PGA. Welcome. On this planet that we call home, there's a group of living beings that we have named kleptoparasites. It's not a species or even a subspecies. It crosses many boundaries. It's seen amongst mammals, birds, insects, and spiders. What are they exactly? They're opportunists who, instead of building their own homes or catching their own food, they steal from others, using their size, their numbers, or their power. There are birds who eat or toss the eggs of other birds and replace them with their own, leaving those parents to raise their offspring. There are gulls who don't dive for fish, but stay on the surface waiting for other birds to catch one and then steal it right from their beaks. There are spiders who enter other spiders' webs to steal their food supply and then eat the maker of the web. Penguins who steal other penguins' pebbles to fortify their own nests. But hyenas may be the best known for these traits. They use the size of their group, known as a cackle, to intimidate a hunter who has done all the hard work of locating, stalking, hunting, and catching its prey. Just as it's about to eat its catch, and maybe call its hungry family to join, these famous kleptoparasites appear, running in and making grabs, dodging the hunter as it tries to defend its catch. But as more and more hyenas appear, they get bolder, more aggressive, and the hunter, exhausted from its hunt, realizes that there's no way to win and relinquishes its hard-fought meal. In a previous podcast, I showed Blake's IMDb page about her upcoming work projects and made the remark that because of this newly acquired PGA mark, she now has the chance to pursue production and direction in upcoming projects. And I made a mental note to check back on these to see how they were progressing and what they're about. And we're going to get to that in a moment. In 2014, Blake, who's neighbors with Martha Stewart, decided to attempt a Martha sort of blog of her own, where she shared recipes, decorating ideas, and sold products. It failed in a year's time, and during the time it was up, Martha herself, who recently told us that Ryan is not funny in real life, but very serious, and we've all been digesting what that might mean, but she did not give Blake's blog very good or very supportive reviews, saying that she needed to close it. I love to cook. Admittedly, I'm a snob about ingredients and recipes. It's probably the only thing I'm really snobby about. Let me explain. If you're going to promote your cooking, if you're going to create a website devoted to cooking, you put yourself in a different category where I would never criticize someone for what they chose to eat or chose to cook at home for themselves and their family. It's not the same thing as someone who is advertising being a cook or trying to make money off of their cooking skills. That's a completely different situation. Prepared foods are filled with awful things like food dyes, preservatives, corn syrup, just very unhealthy stuff that we never should have started putting in our bodies. A lot of these things are actually banned in places in Europe. And now back to my reason for being snobby about it. I don't touch these things for the same reason that I refuse to use non-stick pans or shampoos with parabens and sulfates. My longtime Murdoch crew knows that I was not blessed with good health. Among other things, I have lupus. It comes with lots of complications. I have migraines, not headaches. They are vertiginous migraines, and they can last for days. Vertiginous, as in vertigo, extreme dizziness, Because of this, I do what I can to avoid things that contribute to worse health. For me, if I'm going to take the time to bake something, it doesn't really take that much longer to start with the whole ingredients. I think it tastes so much better, and I'm so much more proud of it if I can say I made it from scratch. Not everybody has the time to do that, and I certainly can't do it every day. My point is when you're presenting it to the world as here's my baked goods, it should be authentically yours. And that's something I adore about Martha Stewart. Her stuff is such quality because of her ingredients. So, when someone like Blake comes along and uses Cool Whip in her homemade dessert, it's certainly not going to get my views. But where am I going with this now that I've wandered so far from the topic? In an interview with Vogue, Blake made a statement about baking a cake. She said, "I'd so much rather buy a box of Betty Crocker vanilla cake mix because they've already done the chemistry of it, the science, and then now I get to make it taste delicious. Now I get to add my bourbon or my elderflower liqueur." I couldn't believe it when I read this. And I felt like this is a very good metaphor for the way that she works in the film industry as well. She wants to be a writer, a director. She coerced Wayfair and Sony to get an unearned PGA credit. But the truth is, she can't write her own script. She takes someone else's already hard-prepared work, violates their authentic creation with her Cool Whip and pudding mix, and calls it her masterpiece. Calls it writing. Even worse, in the same interview, she also said this. The interviewer says, "I asked Lively if she would ever write something from scratch. She considers this. A blank page is not nearly as exciting to me as starting with the script and finding something people have overlooked. Saying, no, there's something there. Yeah, somebody else's creation. To me, it's a treasure hunt. And so when I can see the treasure, then I get to be an archaeologist. I get to excavate. I get to carve it out and find this thing and show people the value in it. That, to me, is what I love." Are we serious? So the script that somebody worked really hard to write has no value until she comes along, finds the treasure, and digs it out like an archaeologist. Is that not insulting to all of these people? If you want to be a writer, be a writer. But this is just so insulting. And this is exactly what she did to Justin. He had prepared this movie, starting with a book that he loved, for 5 years. Colleen wrote this book. Christy Hall converted it to a movie script. And Blake put Cool Whip and pudding mix in it, and then took all the credit. And in her mind, she's the one who brought value to it. She was the archaeologist who excavated it. Not the woman who wrote it, not the man who spent 5 years bringing it to life, not the woman who changed it into a script. Nope, no value till she got a hold of it. What a way to look at the world. Her husband has made a great deal of money, both in film but especially in business. He set up a production company for Blake in 2020 called B for Effort. It should be renamed F for Effort because nothing has come out of it in these past 5 years. It's a vanity business. It lists several projects, all of them centered around Blake in some way, but they all seem stalled. And when I saw that, it really made me wonder why, instead of focusing on building up her own company, that she even chose to do this movie with Justin. It's because she doesn't know how to create one. She doesn't know how to start from scratch. She wanted to swoop in and steal something that was all ready to go. And meditating on that made me realize it's because she's a kleptoparasite. It's not easy to start from scratch if you don't have your own gifts of creativity or the humility it takes to build something from the ground up. She prefers instant success. I imagine that she looks at the fame of her friends, the success of her husband, and she wants it for herself without the actual talent and hard work that it takes to get there. Taylor Swift, for example, started writing songs as a teenager. She has never stopped. She cranks songs out like a machine. When the pandemic hit, which slowed down the careers of so many stars, she kept writing. She set up recording in her home, she filmed a documentary about it, and when it was over, she arranged her Eras Tour. This tour was the likes of which that's never been done before, all while racking up award after award during the process. But whether you like Taylor or not, you can't deny that she almost never puts down her writing pen and guitar pick. She works very hard for her success, and she's very talented creatively. She's crafted out a persona, crafted out songs, and these keep her at the top of the charts since she started in 2003. That is very hard for artists to do. We've all heard of one-hit wonders or one-album wonders. Some people can make it for a couple of years, and then they just kind of drift away into oblivion and you never really hear about them again. Staying power is very, very rare. Her 2024 net worth was listed as $1.6 billion. If that's your friend and you're a competitive person, that's hard to take. Now, I don't find Ryan to be a gifted actor. I mean, it's my personal taste. There's only so much I can say about that because of his success and how many people like him. And I also can't deny that he has this good business sense, or at least the sense to follow good business advice. He obviously stays very busy. He has many different companies that have led to him accumulating a net worth of $350 million. These two are competitive with others, but also with each other. We've seen them talk about that in interviews. His career, much like Taylor's, is skyrocketing and expanding, while Blake's was fizzling. Taylor's other friend, Selena Gomez, whom we recently saw her supporting, has had great success with her TV series Only Murders in the Building. Before that, her cooking show on HBO, and her newest venture, a successful line of cosmetics. And this is all on top of her music career. In spite of her poor health, she has stayed very, very busy. And she, like Ryan and Taylor, has only become more successful with time. Her net worth is now reportedly $1.3 billion. Blake's co-star in A Simple Favor, and the reason for its actual success, Anna Kendrick. Anna has also had a very successful career. She just recently directed her first movie, and she's been piling up many high-selling movies in recent years. Blake dared to ask top billing in the recently released sequel, Another Simple Favor, though her film career's success pales in comparison. When you look at Blake's movie career on IMDb, she has a lot of flops. There are movies on her list that made way less than the budget cost, some that made very modest earnings, and others that scored very high, but that she was not the star of. So in fact, it was her co-star's star power that actually brought the revenue to those movies. That's what made it so shocking that she dared to ask for top billing over Anna, who by comparison has 22 wins and 79 nominations for various awards. That's not the only measure for success that she has. Not only was her salary for Pitch Perfect 3 double what Blake's was in It Ends With Us, she won the Palm Springs International Film Festival Award for Directors to Watch. And this was her directorial debut for Woman of the Hour. So not only did she become a director, but she won an award for it, saying, "We need to watch this woman. She's going places." She also reportedly donated her full salary from it to charities. She's been nominated for a Tony for her performances on Broadway, where she branched out from film, and she charted at number 6 on billboards for her Cup song. So all of these really broaden her range of success. Blake's friend, Gigi Hadid, is a supermodel and fashion icon. She just branched out to launch her cashmere business in 2022. The company saw a 100% growth in revenue in 1 year. This is astounding for a new company. Her net worth is $30 million. Maybe most importantly is Scarlett Johansson. As most of you already know, she is Ryan's ex-wife, the one he was married to when allegedly began his relationship with Blake. Now, I don't even have to tell you about Scarlett Johansson because she's one of the most famous celebrities of our time. Her net worth is $165 million. She received her PGA credit for Fly Me to the Moon. And very importantly, in September of 2023, it was announced that she was scheduled to have her directorial debut for none other than Wayfarer. This is a very important date to pay attention to. Remember, Blake had left filming in It Ends With Us in June of 2023. By all accounts, looking at the communication between Blake and Justin, they were getting along. They then spent many months apart, completely apart, where absolutely nothing could have happened physically or anything that Justin could have been accused of in that time. I always thought that things went sour because he said no about the dailies. But if you look at this timetable, Blake comes back in November and presents the 17-point document, and the animosity begins. That means that this announcement of Scarlett Johansson securing her directorial debut for Justin's production company happened right smack in the middle of Blake's time away from the movie set. I can't help but think that is glaringly relevant to what happened. Not only are all of her friends around her doing super well, while her filming career is so mediocre. Ryan, whose career was pretty mediocre too until Deadpool. Then his career took off. Then he had money to start investing in companies, and he did in all earnest. Everyone was passing her up. Worst of all, her husband's ex-wife. And she was earning something at the very company where Blake was working. Surrounded by all the success of those around her, and her own life slowly stagnating, she needed to do something drastic to catch up. She had started as a child actress and had earned $16 million by 2020. Her net worth now is reported to be $30 million, which is nothing to scoff at. But when people around you are becoming billionaires and your husband's net worth is $350 million, $30 million probably seems like a little. Now it's interesting that in that time, between 2020 and 2025, she didn't earn that extra $24 million by filming. She started a liquor brand, she started a hair care brand, and she also does paid endorsements for L'Oreal, Gucci, and others, earning much more from that than she does acting. How was she ever going to catch up to her peers and her competition at this rate? What good is it to have a production company if you have no idea how to produce anything? But what had she seen? She'd witnessed Ryan take over Deadpool. This was his most successful film. His first attempt at a superhero movie, which are usually wildly successful, like guaranteed success. But he was in Green Lantern, the movie where they actually met. It was a flop. So when he gets another chance at being a superhero and finally strikes success, what does he do? He drove off the director and took the reins himself. This was the biggest boost in his film career. After watching that happen, all Blake had to do was follow his example and use his help to do it. It Ends With Us, like Deadpool, had a sequel, work she could continue on with. If she cozied up to the author just right, she has a whole slew of books to continue on with. It looked like her chance to do what her husband had done. She just needed a plan. Oh wait, she's not creative enough. She takes other people's plans. And that's what she did. She took Ryan's plan. Justin had already choreographed all the scenes. He'd lined up all the sets, all the filming locations. He'd hired all the cast and crew. Everything was ready. And she walked in and stole it because she lacks the talent to come up with a story of her own. Even though her husband had bought her a production company, she had no idea how to produce a story of her own. The groundwork that Justin had done, that's the hard part. It requires a whole process, like I said, that took him 5 years. It requires actual creativity. Not everyone has that ability. So what do you do when you want to pretend that you do? You get something that someone else has prepared. A box cake, so to speak. As she says, the science has been done. When you don't know how to direct, you get the script. with the scenes already planned. You criticize. You rearrange the work that's already been done. The science is already there. All you have to do is throw on some Cool Whip or some elderflower liqueur and call it yours. And that's why I've named her Box Cake Blake. No originality, no creation, no idea how to put raw ingredients together. Take something that's already prepared, cover it with sprinkles, and say you baked it. And then, of course, tell everyone how brilliant you are. It reminds me of when I lived in China. I love creating things. And I think that's probably why this trait of hers bothers me so much. I was the vice president where I co-created a language center there with another expat that I met and a couple of Chinese nationals. The co-founder and president invited me on to create. He did the boring books and finances, all the numbers. I created. I designed all the classrooms, all the learning labs. I created the curricula for every level and taught every level from kids to high-level business executives. Once it was off the ground, I sold my share and moved on. The creating part, the challenge, is what I love the most. I was hired for an experimental school, the first of its kind in the city I was in. It was an international school. I was given some small pamphlet-sized textbooks. They were for 4 levels of learning to build a curriculum from. I was handed over a 4-story empty building that had a grand hall, an art room, a cooking lab, an animation lab, and I was told to get it ready to open in a few months' time. No one was allowed to tell me how the existing curricula worked. That's the English one or the Chinese one, because they didn't want it to affect my ideas. They wanted it to be authentically American. I worked hard. I worked through 104-degree temperature at one point. I worked till I actually fainted one day. I worked through literal blood, sweat, and tears. I worked till my back seized up and I had to go get physical therapy and acupuncture. I was covered in glue, paint, and exhaustion for months to get the initial 3 classrooms and all of those labs done before we opened. I continued on with the rest of the building for the next 3 years while it slowly filled up to capacity. You guys are learning a lot about me today. I rarely say anything personal, so this is a rare occasion. I built a life-size dinosaur skeleton, a working volcano, an almost life-size cow. I sewed costumes, and then I met with the foreign teachers once a week to prepare lesson plans. In my last year there, what would be the equivalent of a superintendent here and the equivalent of a mayor here came to inspect the school, the functionality, the design, because they gave us a couple of years to get it up and running before they did the inspection. Afterwards, he instructed the entire city's principals to come and learn from me. So I had to prepare a teaching seminar and give them tours of the completed building. My boss was furious because she was afraid they were all going to copy. I pretended to be, but I was secretly thrilled and very, very proud. One of the hardest things for me to deal with in the cultural differences, and there are so many, was that in continuing education, and those of you who work in areas that require licensing, you'll know what I mean. You have to attend continuing education seminars to keep up your license. And we had to do those as well. But during these, we would prepare so hard. I'd put my best teachers in to demonstrate a class. We'd rehearse it. We'd get all the best supplies. But always, at the end of showing the lesson, it would be opened up for review and discussion. The fellow teachers would proceed for the next hour to criticize and tear down each presentation made by their fellow teachers. I would be in literal tears for the poor teacher who was being shredded, because I thought that they'd done a spectacular job. When it came my time to speak, I only ever praised them. Next time would come, I'd have them work even harder. They'd show it to me, I'd approve, they'd show it to the rest of the teachers. Same thing. Nothing but criticism. There I'd be, devastated for the teacher again. Finally, I asked, what is all this tearing down business? And they said, well, it's how you help each other to grow. If you only praise them, no one's going to improve. You have to keep each other from getting complacent and keep improving. While I understand that concept, I also think it's very disheartening and very discouraging. And yeah, mean. The desire to earn praise can also be a motivating force, because in this atmosphere, you're never going to be told what you did was good. So the next time we had a training session, When it was time to discuss, before I let anyone speak, I made a rule. You may criticize something that you think needs improvement, but you're not allowed to call it a problem unless you also offer a solution on how to do it better. Also, your solution will be opened up to criticism as well, because it's the easiest thing in the world to look at someone else's hard work and find fault with it, or take their original idea and say, well, this is what I would do with it. After they've done all the hard work, all the creating, they've provided the box cake mix. It's not nearly as easy to come up with an original idea yourself, the actual science. It went really rough at first because somebody would start out with the criticism and want to stop there, but I didn't let them off the hook. I would ask, well, how would you solve that problem? How would you do it differently? They would come up with something, and like I said, their idea would be open to criticism too. Once people started questioning their ideas, their thoughts, suddenly they didn't have so much to say. We were used to spend like an hour discussing when they were just free to criticize. Doing it my way, we could barely stretch 15 minutes out of it because it's so easy to tear down, not so easy to create by yourself. And that's exactly what Blake reminds me of. When I saw the videos of Justin attempting to direct her, and her, after getting handed something with the science already done, seeing the scene already set up, the direction already there, she could only find fault and build on what was already there instead of coming up with something from scratch by herself. Even more interestingly, if you look at the text messages, she had gotten the script and started doing rewrites with Justin quite a while before filming even began. She didn't even have enough creativity to take that and sit down and redo it all at once. Instead, she would wait till they were actually on the set to film, seeing everything set up. Then she could come up with something. And we see that in the videos that people took of her on the street. They're already on there. Cameras are set up. Cameras are rolling. Action. But no. That's when Blake's standing there, pointing, hands flying. Oh, I think we should do it this way. Walking up, let's do this, let's do that. It took her all the way to the point of the whole set being ready before she could offer anything. Anybody can do that. When you're trying to get a toddler to entertain themselves, you can slap down the fanciest toy and tell them to play. And what do they want? They want you to play with them because they don't know what to do. They're just developing their imagination. So what do? You sit down, you take the toy that they had no interest in or didn't know what to do with, and you start giving them voices, giving them movement, giving them actions. Pretty soon what happens? They're grabbing the toys out of your hand because now they know what to do with it. Now, do they take it and go on and make something completely different than what you did? No, they kind of repeat or kind of stick to whatever prompt you've given them. And then as they get a little older, as you've done that with them in multiple settings, they've observed a lot of human behavior, then they can start doing their own things. But even in those things, they're mimicking stuff that they've seen in life. You'll hear them say things they've heard you say. And I was thinking, this is Blake. She can't start from scratch in her production company. She can't take a script, sit down and go through it all at once. It's like that toddler. You have to set the toy up, show them how to do it, and then they're grabbing it and then they're doing it. Box Cake Blake. And that's what took me back to her IMDb page. It's funny how she and Ryan are constantly called this power couple. How many times have we heard that they're this power couple? I think after you hear that so many times, you just accept that it's true. So in my mind, I thought she must have this amazing Hollywood blockbusting career. I lived out of the country for 11 years. I missed a lot. I don't follow celebrities. They don't put me in a state of awe. I look up to a very different kind of person. My Murdaugh people know who I love. I love people like the Honorable Judge Clifton Newman. One of the most exciting moments, I got to be in his courtroom and rise for him months before he retired. I admire tenacious lawyers who fight for justice. I admire people who do things for children. I admire teachers, anyone in the education field, especially after having done it and knowing how hard it is. I admire volunteers, people who spend their lives doing something for other people instead of themselves. So stars they've never really done it for me. As far as Blake's work, I have watched the movie The Age of Adeline because I love Harrison Ford as an actor. But I felt like she was so blasé in that. The story was brilliant and could have been so much more. It's good enough to keep you engaged in spite of her limp acting. I felt like it especially showed up in the scenes where she was playing opposite her daughter, who by then was supposed to have been elderly. And if you haven't seen it, she has an accident that causes her not to age. So she still looks like a young woman around 29 or so, and her daughter's now this old woman. You see that she's dealing with the typical illnesses of an older woman, and just trying to imagine what that would feel like to watch your daughter growing old, knowing she'll be dying soon, and you're still here young. I mean, the opportunity to play a scene like that, the kind of emotion and love and concern that you would have expected to see, and nothing registers. Not on her face, not in her voice. Every part of the movie is the same. Her voice never rises, it never lowers, it never speeds up, it never slows down. It's all just very blasé. And it was such a waste. But until it ends with us, those are the only things I've ever seen her in. But if you've watched that, here you see Justin acting with his entire body. His face shows all of his emotions. And there she is. Blasé. There's a lot of very emotional bits to this movie. You see it on Justin's face. You see it on Brandon's face. You just don't see it on her face. I mean, the bits of the movie that make you cry are Justin, not her. And that explains why a lot of her movies just haven't gone anywhere unless she's just a bit part or just a co-star and she has a strong co-star next to her that actually brings the revenue. But this is what made me find out about her production company, because I saw her listed as future director and future producer in some of these things, and so I thought to myself, wow, this is why she wanted the PGA mark, so that she could advance in her career and get it in other movies. So I looked into what these other movies are that are coming up where she's listed as director and producer, and lo and behold, it's because it's for her production company. And with all of these films just sitting there, just completely stalled, it became very clear why she wanted this takeover. She wanted something to give life to her lackluster movie career before someone started to notice, because we weren't paying attention. We were buying the line, power couple. But here it is, in black, white, and color. She wasn't ever going to earn these roles by her talent. Apparently, she needed her husband there to scream and bully, and she needed a gentle soul to manipulate, bully, and extort. But let's not let Boxcake Blake and her one remaining dragon get away with this.